The moment the Dodgers won 11-5. 4 hits. 2 home runs. A performance so complete, so unreasonable in its generosity, that it should have been enough to make everything else disappear. It wasn't. That is the thing about nights like this one. The thing that makes them complicated in ways that a final score cannot fully communicate. The Dodgers won 11-5. The numbers are clean. The outcome is not in dispute. But somewhere between the second home run and the final out, something happened that refused to be absorbed into the celebration. Something that sat in the corner of the clubhouse long after the game was over, quiet and patient, waiting to be addressed. Elias Diaz gave up 3 runs in the 9th inning. With an 11-run lead. And the way that fact landed inside the Dodgers' world said something important. Not just about one inning. Not just about one closer and one bad night. About what this team is building toward, and what it cannot afford to carry with it when the calendar turns and the games begin to cost everything. To understand the weight of the 9th inning, you have to first understand what the first 8 had looked like. Because the first 8 innings were Shohei Ohtani at his most complete. Not Ohtani doing one thing brilliantly while the rest of the game happens around him. Ohtani doing everything. Ohtani making every at-bat feel like a problem the opposing pitching staff had not adequately prepared for, no matter how much time they had spent preparing. 4 hits. 2 home runs. Numbers that, placed next to each other, begin to sound like fiction. The kind of line that appears in a box score and makes people look twice to confirm that it is real. That it belongs to one player. That one player produced all of it inside the same 9 innings, against the same pitching staff, in the same game that you watched with your own eyes and still somehow find slightly difficult to believe. The first home run arrived early. The kind of swing that announces itself before the ball has left the infield, before anyone in the stadium has fully processed the sound of the contact. It climbed into the outfield seats with the particular authority of a ball that was never in doubt. No trajectory check. No moment of uncertainty. Simply gone. The stadium reacted. Of course it did. It always does. But the second one was different. The second one came in a moment when the game already felt decided. When an 11-run lead had settled over the evening like a verdict. When the opposing dugout had already begun the quiet mathematics of late-game managing, of protecting arms and thinking about tomorrow. The second home run arrived in that atmosphere and refused to be treated as a formality. It demanded the same attention as the first. It demanded the same reaction from the stands. And it received both. By the time the 8th inning ended, the Dodgers had built something that felt impenetrable. 11 runs. A margin so large that the word comfortable doesn't quite reach it. The word that fits better is inevitable. It felt like the kind of lead that simply cannot be lost. Not because leads of this size are never lost in baseball, because they are, but because on this particular night, with this particular performance still warm in the air of the stadium, loss felt structurally impossible. The 9th inning began. Elias Diaz walked to the mound. There is a particular responsibility that comes with closing out a blowout. It is not the same responsibility as closing out a one-run game, where every pitch carries the full weight of the outcome. But it is not without its own demands. The job is to finish cleanly. To give the team what it already has. To convert the inevitable into the actual without incident. The first batter reached base. In a different inning, in a different game, that would have been a minor event. Baseball is full of minor events. Batters reach base. Pitchers navigate around them. The game continues. But something in the inning had already changed. Something in the air had shifted in the almost imperceptible way that bad innings announce themselves before they have fully arrived. Players on the Dodgers bench who had been relaxed moments earlier were paying a different kind of attention now. Not alarm. Not yet. But the looseness had left the room. Another runner. Then another. 3 runs crossed the plate before the inning ended. 11-5. The Dodgers still won. The math was never actually threatened. The lead was large enough to absorb what happened and still deliver the same result. But the way those 3 runs scored, the way they accumulated against a team that had spent 8 innings making the game look easy, created something that the final score could not erase. It created a conversation. The clubhouse afterward had 2 temperatures. There was the warmth of a team that had won. That had watched Shohei Ohtani do something extraordinary again. That had gone into a game with a job to do and completed it. The noise of that warmth was real. It was not performed. 4 hits and 2 home runs from your best player in an 11-run victory is a genuine reason for genuine satisfaction. But beneath that warmth was something cooler. Something that moved through the room in glances rather than words. In the particular way that players who have been around long enough to understand what matters looked at each other when the 9th inning was mentioned. They had seen it. All of them. They had watched the margin shrink from 9 runs to 6 in the span of a single inning. They had watched a lead that felt like a certainty become, briefly, a situation. Not a crisis. Not even close to a crisis. But a situation. And situations in May become crises in October. That sentence was not spoken aloud in the clubhouse. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of thought that veteran players carry with them through a long season. The kind of awareness that separates teams that know how to win from teams that are still learning what winning actually requires. Diaz sat in front of his locker with the expression of a man who had already had the conversation with himself before anyone else could have it with him. He knew what the inning was. He knew what it meant. He did not require a reporter's question to understand that 3 runs in the 9th inning of a blowout is not simply a statistical event. It is a signal. Not a catastrophic one. Not a permanent one. But a signal nonetheless. When asked about it, his voice was quiet. Not defensive. Not searching for explanations that might soften what had happened into something easier to carry. He answered the way players answer when they have already accepted the full weight of a bad inning and decided that acceptance is the only useful response. I didn't do my job, he said. 5 words. No elaboration required. The reporter followed up. What happened out there? What changed between the first out and the 3 runs? Diaz was still for a moment. Not searching for words. Sitting with the question the way you sit with something that deserves more than a quick answer. I got comfortable, he said finally. That's on me. The room absorbed that. Because it was exactly the right answer and exactly the wrong answer at the same time. The right answer because it was true and honest and took complete ownership of what had happened. The wrong answer because comfortable was precisely the thing that the Dodgers, on a night built around an 11-run lead and a 2-home-run performance from Ohtani, could least afford to become. On the other side of the building, the conversation about Ohtani was still warm. Still carrying the particular glow that his performances generate even in the minds of people who have watched him closely enough to have lost the capacity for surprise. 4 hits. 2 home runs. Both facts repeated with the slightly reverent quality of people who are aware they are watching something that will not always be available to them. That careers end. That seasons have limits. That even the most extraordinary performances exist inside a finite container. But when the 9th inning entered the conversation, even there the temperature changed slightly. Someone asked whether a 3-run 9th inning, in a game already decided, was something to be concerned about. The answer was careful. Diplomatic in the way answers are when the person giving them is weighing honesty against the appropriate context of a regular season game in May. We won, came the response. But we also have things to look at. Simple. Direct. And containing, in that second sentence, everything that the first sentence was trying to leave unsaid. What this night ultimately produced was not a clean story. Clean stories have one temperature. They begin in one place and end in another, and the journey between those 2 points moves in a single direction. This night moved in two directions simultaneously. In one direction, Shohei Ohtani, 4 hits, 2 home runs, an 11-run victory, a performance that added another chapter to a season already full of chapters that don't need embellishment. In the other direction, an inning that didn't need to happen. 3 runs that crossed the plate in a game already won, against a margin already large, in a moment already decided. 3 runs that will not appear in the season's final statistics as anything significant. 3 runs that will not change how this game is remembered by people who watched it casually. But 3 runs that will be remembered by the people inside that clubhouse. By the people who understand that what you practice in May is what you perform in October. That habits are not formed in the moments that matter most. They are revealed there. They are formed in the moments that appear not to matter at all. Ohtani's 4 hits and 2 home runs will appear in the record books. Diaz's 3 runs will not. But somewhere in the distance between those two facts lives the most important conversation the Dodgers had on a night they won 11-5. Not about what went right. About what went wrong when nothing was supposed to be able to go wrong. About what it means to be comfortable. About what comfort costs. About how an 11-run lead and a performance for the ages still managed to leave a team sitting in a winning clubhouse with something unresolved. Something that required honesty rather than celebration. Something that Diaz had already named before anyone else could name it for him. He got comfortable. In May, that costs you 3 runs. In October, it costs you everything.